Hey there. Thanks for the note for noticing. I actually just noticed that my mic was off. So I've been talking this whole time to probably no one until you got here. But yeah, mic was off. Perfect. I'm in a new space, new setup. And so I'm a little bit off with just not feeling like everything's in the right spot. And so I probably just forgot to turn the mic back on when I got started. All right, so we're scribing some details onto this chicken head part of the Penelope Gundam today. Trying to set off these vents from just the white outer armor part so that I can later paint it in a more interesting way. So this penciled area is roughly what I had in mind, and we're gonna place some tape here. Being careful of the little hash marks, tick marks, whatever it is that you want to call them here on the tape, so that it'll be easier to reproduce this on the opposite side when it comes time to do that. So what I'm trying to do is line these up with the corners of things, because that'll help make it easier to measure the other side. This is also my first time streaming something that's not just like a snap build. And so it's going to be interesting because I find myself kind of getting in the zone when I'm doing things like scribing or painting. And I'm not sure that I'm always going to, or I'm concerned that I won't always see things in the chat or be able to respond to people because I'll be like in concentration mode. And so we'll see how this goes, but that's one concern that I have, is making the stream interesting when I'm doing something that's very kind of tedious, like what we're doing here. So if you're watching and you have suggestions or feedback, good or bad, please share. Because, like I said, this is kind of a new process for me to do on stream. And I'm trying my best also to keep it in camera, which is maybe going to be a problem. So far seems okay. And I do the same thing when I'm watching other people stream, especially if they're just building. I don't really chat either. I just watch and lurk, which is fine. Welcome. All right. Sometimes when I'm working on detail like this, I actually have a pair of these, and they might be in my drawer right here. I'll pull them out. I have a pair of these like magnifying things. I think they're made for like people who work on jewelry and stuff. So sometimes I put these on because they really magnify what I'm looking at there. But today, at least so far, I'm gonna not do that. And we'll see how it goes. So let's get this perfectly lined up. Come on. There we go. Right there on that edge. All right, so before I scribe this, and I don't always do this, sometimes I take a reference photo, like on my phone, so that I can come back and mirror this to the opposite side later. In this case, because the opposite side is right there and it should be fairly easy to do, I'm just gonna copy this design over to the opposite side right now, and then yeah, then we'll scribe both of them. This is definitely where these little lines on the tape come in handy, because I can count millimeters on this side to reproduce it over here. So like I know this is up 2 millimeters from there. That's actually going to be easier to do with a piece that goes over the top of another piece later on. So let's guess where this will go, and then we can adjust as needed. Should be about right there. Down a little. A lot of times I just eyeball this symmetry, but when it's something that I know is going to be easily viewed by somebody looking at the finished product, like it's so close together, right? I try to be even more careful. If it's two parts that are maybe on like opposite arms or something that are going to be further apart and probably posed such that they're not perfectly lined up, I'm less concerned about it. Because as long as you get it close, no one will notice. Now we can put this piece here. 1, 2, yeah, perfect. Okay, so that guess was right. And this lines up just about perfectly. I like it. Okay, cool. That's a good start. Now, over here we are 1, 2, 3 millimeters out. And that looks like it's going to be correct as well. 1, 2, 3 out, yeah, and then we go up there. So we'll get a bit of a longer piece. And that one hits right there, and we'll just eyeball the, making it parallel with this edge of the vent. Good. Yeah. All right, and then we went up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That also looks correct. Maybe a bit low. Let's see. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would hit right about there. And we want it to be also 6 that way. Perfect. So if we're going from, let's flip it around because this edge is better. Yeah. So we're going to right there. And right there. And we're again eyeballing the parallel with the edge of the vent. Now I've lost track of which thing I was. There it is. So that's a little high. And that's really good. Yep, nice. So we'll stick that down nice and solid. Still a little high, I think. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna reposition that. I have not planned everything. I normally kind of feel it out as I go along, but I also usually do it like a section at a time. So I work on one section. You might have tuned in after I put on screen here some of the parts that are already done. Right? So I have these sitting off to the side, and most of them are just these outer armor bits. And I have them sitting there so that I can look over, because it has been a while since I've worked on this kit. It was like, I think maybe March or April the last time I had this out of the Ziploc bags. So these are here to refer to as I go along so that I can, kind of remember the stylistic choices that I made and try to do things that match. So, but then a lot of it is just, I look at the part and I kind of imagine, here with these vents especially, like I want these to be more part of the inner frame, sticking out through the outer armor. So I need a way to separate them visually so that I can paint them a different color. And so that's the motivation behind this particular bit of scribing right now. That looks good. So we'll just follow that parallel up. Yep. I also, like, from one kit to the other, will sometimes do things a little bit differently, in that, like, I don't always do, like, fully complete individual sections. Sometimes I actually just, plan out the whole kit and do all of the detailing and then all of the painting all at once. This particular kit, because I knew I was going to do it, I was going to not build it and complete it all at once. And I knew that it was going to be, a longer process, and also it was just a lot of big parts, especially for painting. I decided to do it a section at a time like this. All right, that lines up pretty nicely. Okay, so yeah, here where the two sides come together or almost come together, I need to make sure that they're really accurate, because again, that's easy to see if they're off by just a little bit. Yeah, nice. Okay, so I'm happy with that, and I'm gonna use the 0.2 millimeter, I think, for this. Yeah, I will. I like to scribe into a completed edge So I tend to start, I don't know how to describe this. I start at this end over here, so that if I do this line, then when I do this line, I'm going into that completed thing, and then when I do this line, I'm going into a completed one as well, just because that helps the scribing tool to stop at the right spot. However, because this one goes off of the edge at a place where the tape is not going to be perfectly stuck down, I need to be super careful as I get to the end there. Just sort of testing the stability of the tape here. Yeah, it's not bad. All right, cool. So a couple super light passes just to make sure that everything is good. And then we'll get more confident. And this is such a tiny little line, but I need to make sure that it's perfect because everything else will sort of line up to it. All right, there we go. So with that, I should now be able to feel that end, yeah, when I get there. Perfect. And then I can go around that corner. That corner feels good now, so moving on to the next section. Seems like the mic isn't picking up the scraping sound of the scriber, which is probably good for the people that are watching. Yeah, I'm kind of watching the mic level as I do that. Certainly if I'm talking, it covers it up anyway, but yeah, even when I'm quiet, it's not picking that up, so that's probably good. It's kind of an annoying sound. Got to be careful with these like outer corners, the ones that are an obtuse angle instead of an acute angle, because it's easy to run past if you're not careful about where you're ending that line. Here, this one's gonna go like over this little ridge and down into there somewhere, but I'm not quite exactly sure how I want to end that yet. So I'm going to let my future self figure that out and actually just make sure I end this line right up about here for now. And then I'll figure out how to carry that down into there. so we'll go through the whole thing here. Yep, seems all continuous and good. Excellent. I'm gonna make a few more passes up here at the top, just to make sure that that's as deep as everything else. No ASMR scribing sounds. I mean, I could record some and just pipe them in. That'd be fun. Alright, so that seems pretty good, and I'm just going to be confident and rip the tape off and see how it goes. Probably would have been easier to just do with the tweezers. Yeah, that looks good. Actually, if I turn this down... Oh, that's better, right? Can you see that better? If I turn that overhead light down just a couple notches? I feel like it looks like on the preview on my screen I can now see that line better than I could when it was like washed out like that. Yeah, alright, we'll leave it there for... Especially on these white parts, that overhead light causes them to wash out. For sure. Alright. So we'll just double check this line. Yep, that seems real good. And that lines up nicely down there. I'm actually going to carry this around onto this little vertical edge just to make sure that it's completed. One thing that really bugs me is when I have a line that doesn't, like, it ends in a place that doesn't make sense. So always help it to make sense. There we go. That looks nice. So over here, we still have to end this in a way that makes sense. And if you see any sort of line right there, it's because that's my pencil mark that I drew. It's not the actual scribed line just yet. The scribed line ends right here at the sort of the peak of this little ridge here. So I may just, by hand, carry it straight down into that piece, which is always a little bit scary to do by hand, but if you're careful, it's definitely possible. So what we're going to do is start out with just this little bit right here. Make sure it lines up with the line we've already done. Perfect. Then I can turn it this way and bring that down. I think I want to hit, yeah, right about where my pencil line ends there. Seems good. So we'll do that, and then we'll come from this side, just up like that. Yep, that's gonna work. Okay. All right, you might have gotten a couple of scribing sounds there. Nice, okay. And then, you know what, I think I'm just gonna bring this line down along this little raised part in the middle here, just to finish it off. So we'll go all the way down there. Because if I am painting some sort of gray around this vent, I can then pull this piece in the middle here out with like some sort of darker or lighter accent gray. And that will look nice. And I fully realize this is like in a hidden kind of behind other things piece that you might not see, depending on how I pose the final kit. But let's do it anyway. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, opposite side. So here we're going to start with this side and go around that way for the same reason that I want to end each individual segment of the piece into a scribe that I've already done. And I'm just double checking this one to make sure it looks right, and that this looks like it's mirroring that pretty closely. That piece is a little high. Just gonna carefully nudge it and then push it down again. Yeah, that's close. Okay, cool. Let's go. This one, I'm going to make sure that I kind of end this up again here at the peak of that little ridge there, and then I'll do the rest by hand later on. So I'm releasing the pressure on the scribing tool right as I get to the end there, because I don't want to slide down over the edge and make a scratch in a spot that I don't want to have a scratch at. Yeah, that's good. Now I can be a little, say this is not making as nice of a corner as I would like to feel. So let's fix that a little bit here. Ah, that's better. Okay. That fixed it. And then we do have this very little bit. So I'm going to actually turn this around. I like to scribe with the tape below my scribing tool. It's certainly possible to scribe above. You just have to kind of change the way your brain thinks about where the pressure needs to go, the light pressure to stay along the tape. But in this case, because I'm coming off of this edge, that'll be easier. So let's, yeah, that's wanting to shift a little. So be careful. Do this very lightly, a couple passes. Yeah, that's gonna work. All right, and that wasn't super deep, but with the tape out of the way, I'll be able to finish it up just perfectly. Yeah, so to me, those look nicely symmetrical, which is great. And now I can finish this little bit and actually bring it all the way around this edge. Right there. This corner right here between that last segment wasn't perfect, but now it is. Yep. That seems good. All right, so now we can go starting here all the way around a couple times. Seems pretty great. Yep. And now I just have to do the little bit by hand here to finish off this top edge. So I don't really want to go that direction. Let's go this direction. carefully. There we go. Nice. Then we're just going to follow this down into that edge there. Perfect. Then we're going to come down along the side of that. I used to be, like when I started doing scribing, and even for maybe a year or so afterwards, I used to get really freaked out about the idea of just scribing freehand without any guide tape or anything. As I've gotten more practiced with it though, these little bits like this, I just don't mentally have any issue with just doing by hand anymore. One, because they're hard to see, right? So even if I make a tiny mistake, it's not going to be a huge deal. But also because I'm just finally a little bit more confident in my ability to draw a very short line with a scriber and make it straight. All right, cool. So I'm actually going to go ahead and go around the top of this little rectangular detail as well, just to finish it off, because I almost certainly will be painting it a different color. It's much easier to mask it and then to use panel lines to cover any imperfections in the masking if there are actual lines scribed here. So all right, very nice. So there we are. And I'm happy with those. And that definitely separates those in a way that works with what I had in my mind. So that's good. The rest of this piece, I don't feel like I want to add any more detail. Sometimes I take away detail, but this is actually fine. This part up here at the front of it follows the same sort of, where is it? Is it on these? No. It's up here. Yeah, so this little bit up here is very similar. It's got these like sort of elongated, rounded indentations in it. So I'll use that same paint color to pull that out, and I'll drop a little panel line solution in there to make that look the same. So I'm happy with how that looks. I sanded this down, but I also deepened that panel line already, so that's good because I did sand out that panel line a little bit. These end in a strange sort of angled way that I'm not crazy about, but also I don't feel like I want to necessarily change it. So I am going to, there's a tiny raised trapezoidal area here. It's just raised a little bit. I'm going to line around the edges of that, and then I'm going to deepen all the rest of these lines. I'm going to extend things like around corners and stuff just to finish them off. Because again, when the line doesn't finish correctly, it bugs me later on. So, and Bandai has a tendency to do this on especially HG full mechanics RE type kits with their panel lines. They just put them on the kind of the outer surface and they don't follow them around the edges of things. So again, I can just by hand eyeball this straight around this edge here to finish it off. Perfect. And then, yeah, this is fine like it is. So I don't trace these a lot of times. Like I don't feel like I need to make a lot of passes, but what I'm trying to do here is just deepen these enough so that later on when I sand this part before painting, I don't accidentally erase any of the lines. If they're just a little bit deeper, it makes masking and panel lining after painting much easier and cleaner for sure. So if you want that like super clean look, which I try to go for on most of my builds, deepening these panel lines just a few passes is probably worth it. Just like that. And then this one, before I do that, I'm actually going to do the edge of this one with my 0.15 millimeter liner. I'm gonna go around this edge and I'm gonna do it very carefully because this doesn't bump up very far. And so I am in danger of slipping and making a giant scratch right across the surface of this. I'll do this little end here first to give me a spot to finish at. And again, I need to make sure that I carry this around the edge correctly. All right. So with that, I can now probably go along here carefully and end right there. It's always comforting when you have that line already there to end into, because you're going along like this and you feel the panel liner just drop into that indentation. Alright, this top edge is going to be terrible, but I'll figure it out. So the problem with this is there's nothing to trace along, because you can imagine this little panel that's, you know, protruding here kind of having a very narrow edge along the top here, but they've molded it so that it's just flat with the piece that's already there. So that's going to be really, really tedious. But I'm going to do the other side here first, and then we will figure out how to connect those two things. Yeah, I might have to break out the crazy magnifying goggles for this one. In fact, I think I will. So this is super stylish. Yeah. Nice. All right, so now I can see this really well. And I think what I'm going to do is, actually, there is a tiny edge here that I can follow if I'm careful about it, at least to get this part of it here. Yeah, that looks good. So now I've got to go from here to over there. And I feel like that's doable. We'll see. All right, so this tape is going to go this way. And unfortunately, the surface to attach to is not completely flat. So that's going to make it even more challenging. However, it's definitely doable. So this end, the right side of this is perfect. This side needs to come out just a tiny bit. All right, so that's good, but I don't trust that this tape is not going to move because, again, it's not, the surface it's stuck down to is not totally flat. So there's a lot of air underneath it. So I'm just kind of going to test it with my fingernail to see if it is going to move with gentle pressure, and it's not. All right, so here we go. I'm trying to do this under the camera as well, but also I have to get it up close to my face with these magnifying goggles. And I don't think I have the camera set to focus this high up anyway. It's really meant to focus down there. All right, but that did work. Yeah, it looks good. And I just realized I have to do this again on the opposite side. Perfect. All right, I need my glasses back so I can see. I can see without my glasses. I just can't see detail up this close without my glasses. All right, so the camera probably won't focus or show this, but there is a nice little edge there now at the top of this trapezoid bit. So that is good. Goes all the way around continuously, no weird bumps anywhere in the line. And maybe a tiny weird one there. Let's take that out. There we go. Okay, nice. And now with that, I can get back to finishing out this little segment here because it'll now end in that line that I just scribed. Just like so. Being careful not to overshoot that and scratch the part. Let's come from this side a couple passes just to make sure we get that little spot here where these two meet. Again, because this is such a short distance, I'm just doing it freehand, no tape, because it'll come out just fine. Yep, that's got it. Just make sure from the other direction that we're good. Yep. I'm being careful not to turn the corner and like go along this line that I already did, because it's a different width. So I don't want to widen it with this 0.2 millimeter liner. Although, like, it's 0.5 millimeter, or 1/10. So you probably wouldn't notice it. Alright, so this side is now good. This line up here is already done. This thing around, I guess we'll call this the beak of the chicken, needs to be deepened just a little bit. And this 0.2 seems like a good width for that, so let's do that. Make sure again that it extends around the edge, because it didn't before. This line doesn't actually connect at the very top middle section here, but that's okay because a piece covers it. It's currently a clear piece, so you could potentially see through that. However, I'm pretty sure it's not that piece, it's the other one. I'm pretty sure that when I paint this thing, I am going to make that not a clear piece. And even if I leave it clear, because of it's like right on the edge there and it distorts what you see through it, you're not going to see that doesn't continue through. So I don't need to fix that problem. It will be covered up. I do need to make sure this one goes around the edge. Alright, so that's good. This is good. There's a line along here that, I mean, honestly, feels like something I would normally get rid of. I don't know if I want to keep this line or not. Yeah, let's keep it and use the 0.5 or 0.15 millimeter to fill it in or to deepen it. However, down here, it doesn't actually continue all the way down. There's a tiny segment here where it doesn't continue down to there. And so, I'm gonna have to be really careful when I get down there and just freehand that little extension down all the way to that edge. Yeah, that worked fine. Okay. Yeah, that seems fine. And actually, I believe that what I'm going to do is then carry this around this way and make this bigger section here sort of the separated panel on both sides that will become a different color. So I'm going to freehand around this curve and end right there. the trick to keep in mind when I'm making all these decisions as I line these things is I have to remember what I had planned to do when I later go to paint. And so hopefully I will remember these things. And if not, like the lines as I've done them will be a hint so that my future self will hopefully figure it out. All right, let's pause for a second and see what happens with this little plume piece. Yeah, because it doesn't completely cover this area here, so I'm gonna have to continue that line up and around there as well, but I don't have to be super careful with it right where it goes over the peak of this. So I can actually take it up to that slot where that plume piece fits into, and then I can just stop there. Yeah, that works. Now we can do the other side. Again, being careful with this little extended bit here that I have to freehand. Carefully. All right, looks good. The other place to be careful is around this rounded edge on the top, where those two lines meet. And I often find that I don't deepen panel lines around like outer curves like this enough. And then if I'm sanding the piece later, there's a good chance you're going to take off more like on the top edge of this than you will elsewhere on the piece with your sanding sponges or paper or blocks or whatever you're using. So I always try to make these areas just a little bit deeper so that I'm not in danger of sanding away this line. All right, that looks good. And then we have to freehand around here. I'm not crazy about this little indented detail right here. On camera with the lighting, you might not even be able to see it. But there is a little, it doesn't have a good defined outer boundary, but it's this little weirdly shaped indentation. I may actually fill that in. If I do, I'm not gonna do it right now. That's the kind of thing I'll probably wait until I prime these pieces. Then I'll look at the primed version and decide whether I like that detail there or not. And if I don't, then I can fill it in with either super glue or putty or something at that point and reprime. All right, so this is the last little bit here. Just making sure these lines are nice and perfectly clean. That looks good. All right. All right, so this part is all done. I don't want to line along that edge because I don't want to accentuate it. I already don't like how it curves out like that. So we're just gonna leave that alone. switch back to the 0.2 and do the opposite side here, the same as what we did there. Again, just deepening lines that are already here, and then also making sure to extend them around the corner. How long have we been going? Like a little over an hour. I lose track of time when I'm doing this, for sure. So I need to pay attention, because at some point I have to stop working on this today and like do all the other things that I have to do today. So I still have a little bit of time though, so maybe we can finish up. It's kind of weird to have a stream and work on one part the entire time, but maybe that's what we're about to do. Although this one's very close to being done at this point, I think. I do still have to do this very tricky raised panel the same as what we did on the other side. So let's tackle that now. You know what, let's get this little bit right here first. Nice. And around the corner. All right, that has worked well. But that was not the tricky part. I went to finish this one around the edge here correctly and realized that I didn't do it for the one on the opposite side. So before I forget, let's go and complete this little area here. Because the way these two pieces fit together, this one kind of fits inside of this one, that little edge will be visible. That's not always the case, but here it definitely is. And so I want that to be finished. All right, good. So now the tricky part comes back. Swap back to the crazy magnifying glasses. We will try to get this one looking as perfect as the opposite side. Yeah. Okay. So here we'll go on this side. I'll try to do this on camera. That's hard to do. Again, not much to attach to here. It's close, but not quite perfect on this end here. That's better. All right, so I'm gonna start with this little, there's a little edge here that does follow a raised area of the part, and it's right there. So I'll take care of that because that should give me a nice little edge to finish into. Or to start from, as the case may be. All right, so that's perfect. Yeah, so we'll start from this side and finish into this. I want to make sure that this extends up here so that I do have something to finish into. That seems good. Very carefully. All right. That feels like it worked. And it looks like it's even and straight, which is great. Yeah, headlamp works too. I have plenty of light from this light that's up above. For me, it's just the magnification of these crazy goggles, or you know, whatever these things are. Headgear helps a lot. I can make this overhead light brighter too. Sometimes I do when I'm building, but like we noticed earlier on the stream that if I turn this thing up to its full brightness, it just washes everything out, right? So I've actually turned it down to a level that works for me, but hopefully on these white parts, you can kind of still see what's going on. It's really hard to light video well when you're working with white parts and still be able to see everything that's going on. All right, I'm happy with that. Let's get rid of those so that I can see normally again. And then somewhere there's a line I have to finish. It is this one right here. Carefully freehanding this little gap that's right there between where the other line ended and where that new line is. Yeah, looks good. All right, and we've got these two little details up here, which, yeah, you know what? I'll keep these, and I will probably deepen those lines. Somewhere I probably have a scriber that fits. Let's see what I've got. This 0.4 probably does it. Actually, let's go for the 0.5. I originally had all different colored handles, and so I would know what size of scriber I was grabbing just based on the handle because I had memorized the colors. However, I now have too many different sizes, so I have a whole bunch of them that just have black handles. But my most common ones I still have with the different colored handles because that makes them easier to grab out of the container over there. That's looking good. Let's grab the other side real quick, and then I will switch back to the 0.2 and do these lines around this last little detail. Okay. Hey Springer, have a good day. Thanks for stopping by. I didn't even notice you were here until you said something a minute ago. Friday meeting. That's never fun, right? On Friday morning? To head off to a meeting. I think Mondays are for meetings, right? You get all your status stuff done at the beginning of the week with your coworkers and stuff, and then you go off and you have a week and the rest of the days where you can actually do work. All right, so this is good. So we should talk about this part, right? In case anybody joined partway through. Because I've done a lot to this chicken neck part. Neck, head, I don't know what it is. I didn't like the curvature. It's too curvy, right? This part of the Penelope, in my opinion, is weird. I wanted it to be more angular. So this used to be more curved. I sanded this flat. You think it's a swan? Yeah. Well, to me, it still looks like a chicken. So yeah, I wanted it to be more angular. So I sanded this part flat so we have more of an angle there. I did actually the same thing with the part on the underside of the neck as well. To try to make it more angular. And then my plan is, it's got this plume here. And this part, this red and yellow bit, right, normally goes right here. When you sandwich this thing together, and so you have these little areas here along the sides. My plan here is to ditch that entirely and to design a 3D printed part that adds two more smaller fins, kind of like this one, coming out the sides here. So we'll have a fin coming out like that and a fin coming out like that. I feel like that's going to make it less chicken-like, so we'll see how that turns out. That is the plan there. Then we scribed these areas back here to sort of give us an area around these vent parts that would allow me to paint them in a little bit smarter way because I don't like them white. And then the rest of it was just panel lines that already existed that we've either extended or deepened or, you know, allowed them to continue around edges so they make more sense and actually end in smart places. I think that these fins, yeah, they're going to be fine. They don't really impact anything that we've done. So that's fine as well. And those are done, or at least that part is done. The other thing I've been working on, this piece, which is the part that goes underneath of this, right? It's one of these yellow details, similar to this thing here. I don't like the darker gray that I used here, by the way. I'm probably going to change that. We'll have to figure that out at some point in the future. But this part here, the underside of it is just open, and this is visible for sure in the final build, and so I don't like that. So I've actually been, let's see if I can find it over here. I've been experimenting, just trial and error, right? This is a hard shape to take measurements of with calipers. And so I took a couple measurements and I've been 3D printing little prototype parts that will fit into here eventually. So I printed this in clear resin, which is actually nice because you can kind of see through it as you place it on here to see where it doesn't quite line up yet. So I think with 1 or 2 more passes and small adjustments here, this side of it here fits perfectly already. This edge here needs a little bit of shifting that way. But the idea is to make something that fits nicely into here that can glue in. And this side of it right now is perfectly flat, but once I get the fit just right, then I can model in some vent details and things. So that's the idea there, is just to make, yeah, I could have puttied this out and then tried to add some details that way, but I figured with such a weird shape and wanting to have a lot of detail on this big flat surface that ends up being exposed here, I would design a 3D printed part instead. So I have already the template drawn out for what I want on here. I just am waiting to put it on until after I get this thing to fit perfectly. So over this weekend, I can probably print a couple more versions, iterations of that piece and get it to fit, which will be nice. Other than that, I'm going to sand and maybe do a little bit of scribing on this part here. Again, this inner bit here to me seems like something that should be painted in like a gray inner frame. sort of color instead of this white. And so I will figure out where I want to delineate that, and I'll scribe an edge that hopefully makes sense for kind of where the inner frame versus outer armor bits stop and end there. And then I'll just deepen the lines on all the rest of this. I don't think I'm going to make any other modifications to anything here on the underside of the neck part. Yeah, so I think my plan will be over the weekend, hopefully, to do those things. And then we'll come back on Monday and I will paint these, I believe, as long as I can get far enough along for that to be ready to go. Monday is a super exciting day where I live, here in Florida, where we launch rockets, because NASA is hopefully launching their big new Artemis rocket that is going to go to the moon on Monday morning. So it's exciting, especially in my family, because my wife works for NASA. And so I might not stream at the normal time on Monday morning because I'm going to be watching a rocket launch, hopefully, if they get that done. So I might stream later on in the day. We'll see how that goes. But I'm going to stop for now because all of that scribing has, being in the zone for scribing for too long definitely makes me a little tired, and it makes my hands a little sore. So I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Yeah, and I will get these parts cleaned up and hopefully ready for paint by Monday. I'll see you later. Have a good day.